Yeah, I don't think you're on.
I don't think you're on.
Yeah.
I'm taking over the panel.
Yeah.
Let's see if that's any better. No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
If anybody wants to run a mic over, that'd be awesome. But I figure let's just jump into the intros.
I'm Chip Paucek, co-founder CEO of 2U. We partner with universities to build really high-quality online degrees. And what's relevant to this panel is we provide both software and service, which includes all the marketing of the universities on a global basis.
Hi, Alicia Hatch, CMO of Deloitte Digital. We are the world's first creative digital consultancy, an entirely new concept in business strategy consulting, technology, data, analytics, and creative, bringing that all together to make businesses hum in the modern world.
Hi, I'm Lazauskas. I'm the head of strategy and content at Contently. We're a content marketing technology company that's really driven by a core data engine that powers all of a brand's content and marketing operations, as well as a talent network of over 100,000 freelance creatives throughout the globe.
And I am Jeremy Goldman, and I have a new mic.
No, I don't.
It doesn't work.
Still can't
He's
hear-
Jeremy Goldman, and
Yeah.
he does not have a new mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see if this works. But I want to quickly, just in case it's not, throw this over to you guys. When you think of data-driven marketing, what does it actually mean to you?
I'll be like the golf announcer. When
Yeah.
you think of data-driven marketing, what does it mean to you?
That's a very good question. So I think it means really using data to make more informed decisions, right? Using it as a tool to tell you what you really should do. But at the same time, data-driven marketing, it can't be this religion where we think that, oh, I'm going to buy this new platform, I'm going to buy this new tool, it's going to tell me everything I need to know. There's still a lot of fundamentals of doing good research, of really getting to know your users and how they use your product. That's still really central, and I think that's something that we lose sometimes in this era where we tend to worship data above all else.
I mean, I think it really matters what stage you're at in the development of creative. Are you at the big idea stage? Do you need to use actually insights, which is different than just big data? Insights to inform your big idea, to help you get closer to something that's going to work, to really understand your customer better, versus are you trying to optimize that idea once it's in market across 1 million channels? Being data-driven, to me, is more about optimization than it is validation.
So, and I think that a lot of people also, and Chip, actually, you want to jump in?
No, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I'm a convert. So, interestingly, we've been public now 3 years, and I've been saying more and more that back when we started, we didn't have either the data architecture or the people to do it right. And I do think that our success has been largely driven by us really becoming data-driven. So I think the math wins, ultimately.
And we were talking about that backstage, and I think one thing that's very interesting to me, and quick show of hands, who here has a creative role in any shape or form? Okay, so we've got a lot of people here, and one of the things that we hear when we're trying to essentially predict the short-term future of marketing is that people are very much concerned about the creative's role going away or changing in a way that they don't recognize anymore. Do you think that if you have a creative role, you actually have to be concerned about that, or does data just change your role and what being creative actually means?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance. So as editor-in-chief, I'm constantly looking at data about like what type of content is really working, for us and for our clients. But at the same time, you can't let that really stranglehold like your ability to make a gut decision to do something. To say like, hey, this is a topic that I know like in my gut is gonna really resonate with my audience. Let me just go out and create something. Let me take a risk. And then if it doesn't work, you'll learn from that and iterate next time. But if every time you want to make a decision, you have to get in a conference room, you have to go over all the data, you have to justify it up the chain, that's really going to limit how effective you can be.
What's interesting is, just to give you a little context on what we do, so we partner with, say, Georgetown University on a Master of Science in Nursing, or Berkeley on a Master of Data Science, and we market those programs globally for the school. And I would tell you that in the early days, even the selection of the programs was really driven by my gut as the CEO. And today we have a program selection algorithm that helps us, gives us an enrollment prediction for whether or not we should even put the capital in to run a program. So we've gone sort of full circle. It's very intensely data-driven today. And I do think if we hadn't gone this route, and this is me really becoming a convert to our fantastic CMO, Harsha Mukherjee, who really drives the marketing decisions every day. Ultimately, it is driven by the data in a way that I think if we hadn't gone this direction, I wouldn't be sitting here today with you. That important to the company.
And while I think that we certainly are so much more data-driven than we ever were in a black box that we used to operate in marketing, we're really actually only at the beginning. We've learned in the last 10 years of neuroscience that decision-making is largely emotional. We give ourselves a lot of credit as rational creatures, as logical creatures, but in fact, our decisions are mostly driven by our emotions. And we're really not capturing well a lot of emotional data yet. So I think it's our emotional intelligence, the ability to capture the heat I'm emitting from my hand into my phone as I'm interacting with a piece of content, or the pheromones that I'm releasing, whatever those indicators are, that it will become that much more powerful for kind of big idea, big C creative.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that this is something also that we encounter is we're advising companies who often think it's best to just capture as much data as possible. And I think you touch upon a really important thing, which is that it's not just about capturing all of the data and getting all of it. It's about making the right decisions based off of that. And in a lot of ways, it seems like in the short term, the humans are still going to have the ability to be the people who interpret the data. So how important is it for your teams to kind of strike the balance between the right investment in tools and the right investments in human beings who can actually make data-based decisions like Chip, like you were talking about?
Well, I mean, actually, if you go down to the individual marketing campaigns where it gets really hard, is in our case, our job is not just to find any student, but to find the right student. So it's a needle in a haystack because they have to be able to get into Berkeley, afford to attend Berkeley, and have the English language requirements as an example. So finding that right student's really hard. So ultimately, every single individual marketing campaign is driven now by an enrollment prediction. If someone visits any of our web properties and they've engaged in any way with 2U, we actually have an enrollment prediction the moment they visit a website. If you don't have that, you actually can't spend the sort of long-form money properly to drive the right marketing outcome. So it's really, really difficult. And I say that because in our early years, we spent a tremendous amount of marketing dollars doing things that definitively didn't work. We just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, I think one really big thing is limiting the amount of metrics you're actually looking at. So deciding on those, say, 5 key metrics that matter to you, because you can look in Marketo and Salesforce and Google Analytics, et cetera, and look at 50,000 different things, and then you can get really overwhelmed by that. Versus saying these are the 5 things that matter to our team. These are the 5 metrics that mean success for us, and really going over those again and again, and making sure you're working towards that guiding light.
One company that shall remain nameless actually told us that they had 14 KPIs that they were very focused on, and it kind of brings up that point, which is KPI. The K stands for key, and if you've got 14, then you actually are spending less time focused on each one versus if you've got the 5, right?
Who was it? Was it Google?
And yeah, no comment. But no, I mean, I think that's actually, and also another thing that Joe, you brought up, which I thought is really interesting, is this whole entire idea that what you really have to be doing is balancing out the gut with the data, and you've got to make decisions based off of both of those and not take out the human element. So for any of you, I think that real time, that's a major issue for people. They're trying to make decisions on a real-time basis, and I think, Chip, it sounds like for you can take the long view. I know that for Contently, you're making decisions on an ongoing basis, and how do you balance the need for speed with the need for accuracy with respect to data?
I mean, I would tell you that while we take the long view because we think this is a big story, online education is not what it used to be. It's getting really, really good. It's just preconceived notions of online education are so bad because for a long time it's not been very good. So convincing somebody like a Yale, which is one of our partners, to go online is a really difficult thing to do. What I would say as a CEO of the company, capital allocation is a big deal. We deploy $10 million of net negative cash in a new program over the first 4 years of a program's life. So it's a big decision. And I would tell you, when I talk about the program selection algorithm and the data associated with it, it's very valuable. But what that doesn't tell me is the institutional will. That doesn't tell me that the partner on the other side has the right leadership team. And that's a big part of this. So while the data is critical to the decision, ultimately, if we have a great market opportunity and it doesn't marry a great institution that really wants to do this and sort of change the way they've been doing something for literally 200 years, we don't get anywhere. So it is both. It's not just the data. Some of it is still driven by how we feel about what's happening. And I would take more credit for being an emotional creature myself than a data-driven creature. So.
Yeah. I also think when it comes to pure creative development and that question of human versus machine and what role the data plays in all of that, it very much depends on what stage you're at and how big the creative is that you're creating, right? If it's many pieces of small content versus that are highly segmented, targeted, versus a large-scale campaign that you're trying to get to capture an entire audience and population, looking at the data up front, using it to validate some of the bets that you're going to make directionally versus over-engineer. Wait until you're in market. Once you've validated it, wait till you're in market to try to optimize it. Otherwise, it's molasses up front.
Yeah, and that actually brings up, I think, another important point, which is it's all about what audience you're trying to speak to, and figuring out, you guys have very different businesses, which I love. How do you figure out how you should be marketing and connecting with your customers? What data points are you looking at from your audiences in order to figure out how to better connect with people?
So I think one of the crucial things there that we often forget is just going out and talking to customers. Those interviews are really important. You can't just rely on data points about what they're sharing or what websites they go to. I mean, those things are important to inform your decisions, but actually understanding the pain points that you're solving and treating them as humans is very, very crucial there. So I think that's one place where a lot of marketers, especially marketers, the millennial set, like my age, fall into, is we think data solves everything, but really having those conversations is so key.
I would almost argue, by the way, that those conversations are data. It's just a different type of data, and I think part of the problem is sometimes that people don't necessarily look at different types of data. They're just looking at one little thing and looking at things consistently in the same way. I mean, have you guys found ever in your businesses, you're looking at some data and you're like, this isn't telling us the whole story. We have to be taking another approach, or we have to try to gather more data in a different fashion?
Sure. I mean, what I think is interesting about we have over 100 full-time digital marketers, and I'd say the sort of marriage between the creative, inbound marketing is actually quite hard, and I don't think that most universities do it this way. And so I do think we're breaking new ground, and where that gets complicated in terms of the conversations, you think about the faculty at a great school where you need to embrace the faculty because there could be 75 different faculty members, and really there's not a single decision maker in that group. Trying to galvanize that group to produce really high quality content that is tied to a data-driven outcome is really, really tricky. And so I think how the math informs it is really critical. And I think one of the things I'm proud of is that this group of people, they're all together based on us being sort of brand stewards of some of what are the oldest institutions in our culture. There's nothing, it's pretty remarkable. My youngest university brand is 12 years older than Walt Disney. The companies don't last this long. And so we have to be thoughtful and careful about every one of those conversations and how to use those conversations to get the best outcome ultimately for the school. But it's tricky, it's a tricky business.
Yeah, and I think segmentation and targeting is an ongoing art and science that you need to assume you're going to continue to look at in real time all the time, because it morphs, and as the dynamics change within a community, things could resonate that didn't a month before. And so taking a very iterative approach overall to data-driven, not just creative, but the actual audience segmentation is important.
I think, building on that, Alicia, I wanted to ask you, You work with some of the biggest companies out there and advise them on how to become essentially better data-driven marketers, make better decisions. What are some of the things that you've just noticed are essentially best practices just for laying the foundation and getting people to look at data in a fundamentally better way?
Yeah. The funny thing is, the last year, the thing I've noticed the most when I talk to CMOs is that they've got all the technology to make this a reality. They've got a shiny stack that's as tall as the sky. They've got a giant pile of data. They've got it all at their fingertips. And yet the organization doesn't know how to use it effectively. And actually, it's really about having a digital mindset and digital behaviors, digital workflows in place so that your organization isn't actually sub-optimizing your capabilities, your technology and data at your fingertips. And so we've been working a lot on bringing it all together across those dimensions to really make this a reality. And ultimately, we talk about KPIs, that this isn't about marketing metrics. The board is tired of marketing metrics. The CEO could care less about our marketing metrics. We need to be able to move from marketing metrics to business metrics because CMOs are now operating as growth drivers. They are looked to for top-line revenue. They are 68% of the time owning P&Ls. To be able to wear a business hat effectively in the boardroom is what CMOs need to be able to do.
See, by the way, the annoying thing about moderating a panel
Totally
is
right.
I really wanted to tweet the hell out of that. So thanks a lot. So I know we have just about a minute or so left, but Joe, Chip, anything you want to add to that about fundamentals?
I think so much of it I would echo there is that even like in content marketing, right? It's an industry that has a lot of really soft metrics, and a lot of times you have a lot of folks who are trying to figure out what their KPIs are at the end of the year when they're going to their CEO or CMO and be like, oh, what did I just spend like $300,000 on this year with content? They're looking at impressions and page views. But from the start, like that planning has to level back to those top level goals. Like it has to be the things that your CFO is actually going to care about when you go and report back your success. So ultimately, it has to drive towards revenue metrics.
I would echo just culture matters so much. As CEO, there's no doubt my single most important constituency is my the employee base. They're incredible, and finding the right people is pretty critical. And I would argue that, well, in our case, by the way, we've got like 100 open jobs, so go to 2u.com. That's my little plug. But so I think you have to have the people that can sort of not get stuck forest trees. You can't try to boil the ocean, and there is so much data, but figuring out what to use or not use, I don't consider that my job. That's my head of data science and my CMO's job. But ultimately, they have to be able to drive the outcome of the business. That's what it's all about in the end. So pretty critical to have the right team.
I love that. I think we could continue this probably backstage. You guys will all miss it, haha. But thank you so much, guys, for joining me. This was really great. Appreciate it.